Morning.
Whoa, that is big. What is that? Wow.
It's a common carp.
Yeah.
It's actually quite a small one for in here, but it's very pretty.
Gosh, it
What is it?
It's a common carp.
Common carp.
Yeah.
I want to let you know.
yeah.
Thank you very much. Enjoy your walk. Well, I'd love to say I've been that much of a hit with the ladies of my age, but unfortunately they are all about 60. But very nice to show this lovely little common carp from a few hours fishing down on my local. And today I've got a load of PVA stuff from Nash, their new PVA range. And this one came on a single 50mm bottom bait with a tiny little bag of micro pellets, which is one of the tactics I'm going to move on to going into the colder months. Because if any of you have been watching some of our videos before, you know I heavily use PVA bags, so PVA plays a big part in my fishing. But going into the winter, of course I'll still use them in my armoury. I might whittle down to even smaller tactics like I have done today with tiny little bags of pellet and a little single hook bait and fishing them pretty much as boosted singles. Very welcome to getting back and run you through the range. So with that lovely common slip back, I'm happy that my 3-hour-long morning session has been productive so far. And now I'll show you the items I've used to actually catch that fish. Not all of them, of course, but the actual bait presentation that I used, I opted for the small PVA mesh. But before we jump into all this, please make sure you're subscribed to us and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any future uploads. And also follow us on all the different social media platforms coming up on your screen right now. Now in front of me are 4 different tubs. So we've got the Speedload, the wide, the narrow, and the super narrow of the webcast PVA from Nash. Now I'll go through each of them individually. As you all know, I'm a massive advocate for the solid PVA bag system. So we'll start off with that. If I just pop these to the side, pop this cap open. First of all, you'll see that the lid is very good as a little scoop if you want to use it as that. Other than that, it's just a funky shaped lid. And then when you open up, you've got loads of PVA bags, a Speedloader, which likes to get caught in there. There we go. And the tub itself. So we just put these 2 things to the side. You'll see that the PVA bags themselves are really good length. So this is a really nice size. So I do a lot of work with PVA bags, as I've already mentioned, and you find that certain PVA bag types makes a big difference on how easy it is to load, how they present, and how they look at the very end. So I've got one that I've actually made earlier, true blue Peter style. That's the shape it will come out as, which is a perfect little shape. And because of this system, it allows you to get the lead nice and central all the time, and it's really easy to load. So what you do is you put your rig in, well, you put this inside of the bag, and then that sort of expands and keeps it open for you. So it's really easy to put all your bait inside, and then you put your rig in, tap that down into the corner, put a bit more of the pellet or whatever you're putting in, then lower in the rig and the lead and make it nice and central. So as you can see, I'm a big advocate for using the Gemini tidy stems as well, the little PVA bag tidy stems, which are really easy to just tie loads up, and then you can tie them on when you want to recast, and that just slotted in there perfectly in the middle. And as you can see, it comes out perfectly exiting from the middle. So nice and aerodynamic. Everything is central with it when it comes to the weight, and it's just a lovely size. As far as PVA bags go, that is pretty much your bang on shape and size that you want. So that is the Speedload PVA bag system, and just fold all this back up and it tucks away nicely in the little tub. Now it does have instructions for ways to load the thing and how to actually use it, but PVA bags are pretty simple to do once you get used to them. So just put all that back in together, and it's a nice neat little system to keep all your solid bag stuff together and away from any moisture ingress as well. So that's just going to go into my solid PVA bag setup bucket soon, and I'll be using them for the winter months to come. And it's also worth noting on the side, this is fast melt. And another thing to mention is that it doesn't taste horrible. So some PVA bags you can get, they still do the same job, but you lick and stick and they taste disgusting. Now, whether that has a big effect on the fishing itself, I've no idea. I've never tested it to that extent or know whether it will make any effect, but surely something that tastes bad to our mouths is going to taste bad out there as well. So especially when you've got that little blob sometimes around the top of your PVA bag system. But you can lick this one. Not that you're going to lick your PVA bags much, and there's absolutely no taste whatsoever. So that's a really good plus point to the Sea Solid bags. And also the same with the webcast mesh, which we'll get on to in a second. I've also taste tested that off camera, and again, no horrible odor or tangy, horrible taste from the PVA itself. So that's the Speedload PVA bag system. We'll put that down there. We'll move on to the webcasts. Now these are your more typical meshes. So if I pop the lid open again, you've got the lids, which are perfect to be used as scoops, nice rigid lids. All of these come with plungers, obviously relating to the size of the mesh themselves. and it all goes into these nice little tubs. Now the PVA mesh, this one here, the wide is 7 meters of 37mm and a 1mm mesh. Pop that back in there, and then we've got the narrow, which is 23mm, again 1mm mesh, comes with a plunger and all sorts. And then we go down to the super narrow, which is, oh, again got the plunger, which is now falling on the floor, is just 18mm, and again 1mm mesh. So all of the mesh is exactly the same actual diameter in itself. It's just whether you want the, so not the diameter, the actual weave of the mesh is the same, but the diameters are completely different. Again, that's 7 meters worth of that, and you've got your plunger and your lid, which again can be used as a scoop. Now, to make it a little bit more of a real world test of how these actually look when they're actually being used, I've tied loads up already. Again, I've got 3 different setups of bags. So to start with, I've got just simple pellet. Now, obviously this one is the largest one, the one that's a big old sausage, that's the wide. And then we've got, oh, sorry, that's the wrong one. Then we've got the narrow, which is this one, and then the small. So this is the sort of shape you'll be getting. If you're putting micro pellets into these things, you can't really squash the narrow one down into a little ball unless you do what I have done earlier as well. I've got some smaller ones. If you were going to make little mesh balls, you can make them much smaller. So I've got dust all over them. So the large, as you can see, is that shape and can pack down to this sort of size ball. The medium is that sort of size sausage and this sort of size ball. And then the small, of course, which is going to be perfect coming into the winter. Just little bits of attraction to go around your hook bait, which is what I'm using today. Little bags like this is what I've stuck out so far, and I've already had one. Just putting that out as a freebie, basically as a single with a little boosted single. So that's the size difference you have with micro pellet, like so. And one other test that shows the way that these meshes behave quite well is just by putting some boilies in them. So I've got ground bait all over them. So all of these, I've just put 5 boilies within. So the narrow one, of course, you can't push them around and feed them into more of a ball shape like you can with a wide. They have to be in this shape, which is quite long. And it could work if that's the sort of look you're going for, but they probably won't cast very well. And it's a little bit fiddly. So maybe not the best option for putting boilies in. Then you've got the narrow, which just about managed to sandwich one next to each other. You could probably shimmy it like that. There we are, I've got 5, but it's kind of like the Olympics logo of configuration of sticking the boilies in there. The best one for boilies, I would say, would be the wide, because as you can see, all of those are 5 boilies in each, and that's the much better shape. Whoa, where's that wind come? It's the much better shape for putting boilies in. Of course, smaller boilies would be fine with a smaller one, but I also maybe think that for economy's sake, it probably makes sense to go for the wide if this is how you use your PVA bags, because that has used up a lot more length of PVA than the wide has for the same amount of bait. Whether that's something you're that worried about, but with the cost of everything, it makes sense to make sure that what you're using is being used efficiently and just goes further in, I'm not sure where I'm getting at with that, but yeah, that's probably going to be more economical than it is to use the small if you're using boilies. So that gives you a bit more of a representation of how these actually will look and how they are usable. The very, very fine mesh, as I said, it's 1mm mesh, but it's not like some of those PVAs you can get, which is more like a fabric completely, so you can't get a splice needle through them very well. Because this is a 1mm weave, when you stretch it out, you've actually got quite a good gap, so you can put a needle through that quite easily, and it doesn't tear very easily. So of course, most PVAs will still tear if you rip them and you're trying to pull a rig through, but I found putting these through down onto my rig to cover up the hook point, they went on very, very easily with a splicing or a closed latch needle. So it's probably quite a lengthy chat about PVA, but as someone that uses PVA all the time, I always like to find stuff that is going to help make my fishing work better or more efficiently, and I think it's a very nice little system. So whether you like the wide, narrow or super narrow, that's up to you, but I do think going into the winter months, the super narrow is definitely going to be something I'm going to opt for, with little bags like that as a little bit of added attraction around the hook bait. So I hope you enjoyed this little video. It gives a little bit of an insight of the PVA range from Nash. For more information, do head over to their website, but this is pretty much as you're going to get from there as well. Do give these a try. They don't taste bad, which is a great plus point. Melts quickly as well, so going into the colder weather, again, it's going to be a big bonus that you're not going to be winding in with residue and bits of PVA still on your rig. So that's a really big plus point there as well. But that's everything for me for now. Going to have to start slowly packing away. That's a productive little couple of hours fishing, getting that nice common at the start. So I'm going to head on home. Please like the video if you did and subscribe to us if you haven't done so already. and also follow us on all the social media platforms, as I've already said earlier, coming up on the bottom of your screen right now. That's it from me. I'm going to head on and leave them to last, because you never know, might get one more at the end.